Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Oh, you're sneaky. That's now I know why you're on the podcast. Love it.
Yes.
Okay, so a few episodes ago, I'm so bad with names.
Julie.
Julie.
Yes.
Julie, right. Julie was on the podcast, and she had mentioned going into this world of publishing and how she has an author that I needed to meet. And I'd forgotten the name, but here it is, Carrie Carter. Wrote, and we discussed a book called Whiskers Abroad. And this is the photo. It was great is that this image is the same image that Julie had, but it's from two perspectives. So here is the cover of your book, Whiskers Abroad, Ashi and Audrey's Adventures in Japan. There's 3 red suitcases, kind of arranged almost like a sculpture. On one of the red suitcases is a gray cat looking at the photographer. And in the background, there's the map of Japan. Okay, take it away.
All right. Well, I wrote a book, and
Woo!
It's getting published. So those are 2
Nice.
huge accomplishments in themselves. So this is the cover of my book, and it's about, obviously, you're like, Whiskers Abroad, Ashi and Audrey's Adventures in Japan, like that. Hopefully you get a good idea of what it's about. It's about a woman and her cat, and they travel to Japan, and it's about their adventures and their stories, and then you get the human's perspective, and then you get the cat's perspective. And it's told like a diary entry, so you get 2 different ones. And Audrey's kind of like excitable and a little goofy and a little bit like me. In fact, all the pictures in there are me. And the cat's a little bit more weary and like, I don't know about that. This may be dangerous. And once he does it, he's, hey, let's do it again. But he also kind of has this sense that he has to protect Audrey. You know, he keeps an eye on her. And the book is also serves as a travel guide. It's got all the places that I go to are real places. You can do all the things in there. And I have websites, I have links to the tickets and the trains and how to use them, and there's like tips in there. So it's also kind of a travel guide. It's like a hybrid.
Amazing. I'm going to treat you as if you're Franz Kafka, but have you actually been to Japan?
14 times.
What?
Yes. I have to let you in on a little secret about that, though.
Okay.
My husband used to work for Continental Airlines, which then became United, and he had flight benefits. So we could fly standby for free, and it's easier to get from Houston to Japan than it was to, say, go to Houston to Europe, because Europe you have to stop in Newark, and there's a risk you're going to get bumped and you're not going to get your flight moving on. So we would take Houston because it's a direct flight, from Houston to Japan. And so we took advantage of his flight benefit as much as we could.
Amazing. So always Japan, Tokyo, or other cities?
No. Various cities. We would always spend some time in Tokyo because Tokyo is huge. And you could spend years in there and still not see everything. But we would go out to maybe the countryside. I mean, we went down all the way down south to Kagoshima. We were there when Sakurajima is an active volcano. We were there when it erupted, and I slept through the whole thing.
That's amazing.
And it blew out windows and cars, and I slept through it all.
What?
So yeah,
that's amazing.
We've been all over. In fact, I have friends who live in Japan who are Japanese, and they're like, "You've been to more places in Japan than I have."
That's great. So talk about cats.
About cats? Well, I've always had cats growing up. We also had a dog, but we also had cats, and I've always been a huge fan. I got my own 2 cats on my own as an adult, and now I only have one, but she's a little cute thing. But I had to throw her out because she's noisy and likes to get into things and rattle the door.
When you say throw her out, you mean out of your bedroom while you're sleeping?
I threw her outside, out of the house.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's indoor, outdoor. She comes and goes. She does what she wants.
Yeah, she does what she wants. You sleep through a volcano erupting, but your cat is too loud for you.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. let's walk through that or let's dive into that world of writing a book. Okay, so how long did it take for you to get this manuscript together?
5 years. It took
Yes,
5 years.
right.
Yeah. It started off as an idea, and then like me and my sister came up with the idea because my sister did all the graphics and the layout and the design of the book.
Respect. And so Stacey Vickers,
Yes.
nice. That's really great because yeah, it's actually a beautiful like design is it's just a way of seeing the world. And so for example, just like when I started talking to you and seeing the photos, like I understand a little bit about design enough to recognize somebody who has that in them. And obviously the designer of your book is going to be like that, but the fact that you allowed those choices to happen, it's clearly a beautifully designed work. So you work together.
Yes, we did. And I think it's also a lot of fun, just the pictures and the. Because we went in there and we photoshopped the cat into places in Japan. So, like, he's really there, you know.
Oh, okay. How many pages? Is this a long book
I think
or
it's around 170 pages.
okay? And is the tone
Quirky. It's quirky,
I wonder where that came
humorous.
from.
It's not too serious, you know. What's really bizarre about the whole thing is I wrote it and people read it and they're just like, that was hilarious. And I'm like, it was? Like, to me, that's shocking. I'm like, really? You thought it was funny? I mean, I didn't expect it to be one way or the other. I just wrote it. I just wrote what I enjoyed, you know, what I thought the cat would do.
Well, so one of the previous guests that I had, Anne Charles. So Anne Charles, it took her a while. Like she actually wrote a few books before she had a book published. And then once she got it published and she kind of got past that hump, she churns out like a book every 6 months. But it's a full operation. It's,
Right.
it's like full on,
It's
right?
a full time job.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's what she does. But she's got like a full like you should yeah, if you haven't listened to it, she's lots of fun. She's super awesome. So Anne Charles, it's just interesting in that, in terms of your process, you're a working writer and you are an author. So why don't you talk about your writing? Like how did you fall into writing?
Oh, I've always loved stories and fiction. And I read books as a little kid. You know, I read all the Ramona Quimby books, and I was a big fan of Trixie Belden, which I think she's a little old school, but and Nancy Drew. I was a big Nancy Drew fan.
Hmm.
And
The rapper?
no, Nancy Drew, the
Oh, sorry, sorry,
mystery.
sorry, sorry. I was being stupid again. I was being stupid again.
I was like, I don't know, there might be a rapper named Nancy Drew. It wouldn't surprise me.
Sure.
But yeah, I would write stories. Starting in third grade, I started writing my own stories. And I was the person solving the mystery, but there was never really any mystery in the story. I would just go
Mm.
somewhere where I shouldn't be, and then I would get hit on the head and knocked unconscious and wake up later and it was all okay. Ha ha ha. Like every
Oh,
story
that
was
old
that
trope.
way.
Okay, so in Whiskers Abroad, you have Ashley and Audrey.
Mhm.
So in terms of their dynamic, like why did you fall on that as your narrative play? I mean, it's probably a really good device to. I mean, because in a way, you said it's written as a kind of an adventure book or a kind of a guide.
Yeah, it's a lot of kind of he said, she said, different perspectives. And
Okay.
the real reason, this is going to sound totally dumb, but the real reason why I selected Audrey and Ashi, you know, a cat and a human, was
Mm-hmm.
because I'm always looking for my purpose in life, my ikigai, and I feel like I can never find it. And I always harass my friends every year, and I send them a list. I'm like, here's the things I like. What should I do? You know, and they're all like, stop doing this. Just stop it. But my sister goes, well, why don't you just take a handful of what you like and write about it? And it's
Mm.
like, oh, you know, that's a really good idea. I can write about food and cats and Japan and traveling. And I'm like, there you go. There's the concept.
Right, right. So you've had dogs and you've had cats.
Hmm.
How about you talk about the way of seeing a world that a cat does, right? Because
Right.
if you're inhabiting the cat as a character and you're thinking a lot about like a cat's reaction and the fact that he's a male cat and all that stuff. So what observations can you make about the way a cat inhabits a space?
Well, the first thing a cat does is what a cat wants to do. It will
Sure.
not do anything. Well, I mean, that there's exceptions, of course. There's people who train their cats, but for the most part, if a cat wants you to pet him, he'll come on over and be like, "Pet me." If he doesn't want to pet him,
Mm-hmm.
he'll walk off. He doesn't care unless he's in danger. But he doesn't. As long as he's content and happy, he will do exactly what he wants. And you always got to remember that or I try to remember that when I was writing that character.
Mm.
And then there's different cat personalities. I used to have a cat named Osty who just loved people. Loved
Mm-hmm.
people. Like, if I had a party, she was happy. She would go from lap to lap to lap in a circle and just keep going around all night getting petted. And now the cat I have right now, she's terrified of other people. She hides from them. So there's different personalities. So I was just like, okay, he's a little egotistical and, he likes to be petted, but he also likes being in his comfort zone. But he's
Mm-hmm.
curious because cats are curious, right? So I feel like any cat was given an opportunity to do something new, even if they were scared, their curiosity would win over.
As a kind of a foil, so we've got Ashi the cat and Audrey the human. Yeah?
Yes.
And so Audrey the human, in terms of the story, like, does it progress through a kind of a narrative, sort of a conflict or a moment or whatever, or are they just having an adventure?
They're mostly having an adventure. They go throughout the country, and it's like whatever they do that day. There's a little bit that's an overall arc, but not a whole lot.
Mm.
It's mostly independent stories.
What I'm trying to say is, like, if somebody were looking at this as a screenwriter, what is the action other than travel?
The action, for the most part, is just them discovering new things, and mostly being excited by it. Sometimes they're not, but for the most part, they're excited.
Okay.
And it's just also about how inappropriate it would be to take your cat to Japan on vacation. You don't do that. You can't do that.
No, it's funny how I just kind of glazed over that, because I think when I spoke with Julie, I was just like, "What? Yeah, of course, taking your cat on vacation." There must be people who do that, right? There must be.
I don't know. I mean, internationally, it'd be very difficult.
Right.
But I know there's people in the United States that travel and they take their cats and they put them on leashes and they walk them and they take
Right.
pictures and put them up on Instagram.
Yeah, the support animals.
Yeah, these aren't this cat.
Got it. Well, so Whiskers Abroad, Ashi and Audrey, because it's not published yet. It's not printed yet. Or
No,
it is published.
it's not. It's launching October 6th. So you'll be able to get your EPUB then, or you can order it then, or you can order an actual physical book. We're having a pre-sale of like your EPUB or Kindle or whatever, like to read it on. That is happening now. You can order it, but you won't get it until October 6th.
Are you working on another one, or is this...
I'm sort of... Well, I was thinking about doing a sequel where they go back to Japan, but I'm like, for that to be successful, I need to go back to Japan and make sure all the things on my notes, they're all still around and they still exist, especially with COVID. Like, I went to Japan and I saw the robot show, which is a very touristy thing to do, but it's absolutely amazing. It is so bizarre and mind-blowing, and you're just like, what am I watching? But it's no longer around. COVID.
Okay.
It went away with COVID because the people
The
seeing
robots got COVID.
people seeing it were the tourists, no
right,
tourists.
Right.
Of course, I think it'll come back once the tourists come back,
Sure.
But you would have to go and check that kind of stuff out. And the borders right now for Japan, they claim they're open to tourists, but you have to go with a tour group. They tell you where to go, what to eat. I mean, they micromanage you 24/7, and I'm just like, that's not going to work too well for fact checking for a book. So I've shifted to working on an outline now for South Korea, because I've been there a couple of times and I know they're currently open to tourists.
Nice. Okay. Well, shall we move on to your last photo?
Sure.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen, and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it